All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's CPR class. Of course, it's free of charge. Heidi and I just truly enjoy doing this, and we are so grateful that you would take time to learn these life-saving skills with us today. And we hope that you share what you've learned with your ohana, you know, that this class leads to important discussions, and we know that by being here today, you are making your community a safer place for everyone. So just thank you so much for being here. So some quick Zoom housekeeping. Please put yourself on mute at this time. We do need to be able to see you. So please turn your camera on and leave it on. You know, we got to be able to see your technique when we're practicing compressions so that we can correct you and make sure that you're doing the right technique. And for now, you can sit comfortably wherever you are, but when we begin to do compressions on our couch cushions, does everyone have one? Oh, hold on, sorry, earthquake. Okay, it's fine. It's in another ocean. That at that point, I'll have you get on the floor, and you do need a hard, flat surface in order to do compressions properly. So other than that, this class is really informal. So please feel free to, you know, write your questions into the chat or raise your hand. You can do that physically or via Zoom, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have. And the way that this works is we're going to be going around doing some short introductions. Then Heidi and I will introduce ourselves and share why we are so passionate about teaching these classes. And then from there, we're going to go through some really quick FAQs. We'll learn some basic definitions. We'll learn how to do CPR, how to use an AED, and what to do if someone is choking. And of course, all age groups will be covered from infant to adults. So we will go around the room, and I'm going to have you first tell me your name. If you're comfortable sharing what your occupation is, you can go for it. Where are you joining us from? And then for the icebreaker, share something that brings you joy. Okay, so we'll start with, I have Alyssa in my top left corner. So we'll start with you, Alyssa. And if you can turn on your camera, that would be awesome.
Excuse me, Miss Malika?
Yes.
My mom's not here, but she will be. She's in a meeting right now.
Oh, okay. No worries. We'll come back to you. You're so sweet.
Okay.
Okay, let's start with Erin.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Hi, I'm Erin Markey, and I actually live on Maui, but I'm in California right now. And Malika, I know you because you are friendly with my sister, Emmy Trudell, and I wasn't able to attend the one that we did that you had pre-COVID in person. And so when this opportunity came up, since I have a darling little niece and nephew, I thought maybe this would be a good thing for me to learn to do. So thank you so much.
Awesome. And share with us something that brings you joy.
My family, and knowing that hopefully one day I will never need this, but if I do, I'll be able to take care of someone in this situation. So, and thankful for you.
Oh, thank you so much, Erin. You're so sweet. Katie, you're next. Make sure you unmute.
Whoop. Okay, there we go. I'm Katie. This is Benjamin. This is why I'm here. And this is Lena back there. She helps out taking care of Benjamin. And hope I never have to use this class. This little guy brings me lots of joy, but lately I love running. It's my favorite thing to do at the moment. Yeah, just makes me happy, clears my mind, all those good things. And outside, beautiful. Yeah, that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Katie. All right, Emily, you're next.
Hi, I'm Emily. This is Axel. He brings me joy when he's squirming around everywhere. I work in renewable energy, and I'm so happy to finally take this class because I've been trying to find something like this. And thanks to Katie, she told me about it, Malika. So thanks for doing it.
Awesome. And what brings you joy? Oh, well, you said your baby. That's
yeah, my baby, being outside, living on Maui, not dealing with the mainland.
I like it. I like it. Check, check, check. Thank you, Emily. All right, Kimmy.
Hi, I'm Kimmy, classmate of Heidi. And I am coming from the North Shore of Oahu, although I grew up on Maui. I really am stoked that you guys are doing this class, Malika and Heidi. I've had to save lives when going free diving before and having people black out. And I just know 100% that classes and drills like are what kept me calm and got me through those times. And so I really think that I want to be that prepared, of course, if anything ever happens, to my son Buddy or anyone in the community. So thank you for putting this on. And eating a really good eggs Benedict brings me joy every time.
I like it. I like it. Let's move on to Mocha.
Hi, I'm Mocha. I'm here in Mo'ili, Oahu, but originally born and raised on Guam. But I'm friends with Kimmy. Thanks, Malika, guys, for doing this. I've met you before. Hopefully you remember. Let's see. I have a 5-year-old son, so I'd like to be prepared as well, just in case. Hopefully I never have to use it, but just be prepared. And like Kimmy, I love to eat. So eating fresh fish is one of my favorite joys.
Awesome. Let's go to Rhea.
Hi guys. Hi Malika. Hi Kimmy and Mocha. I haven't seen you guys for a while, but Malika, thanks for doing this, and I'm really excited about doing this. But I work in accounting for an investment company, which is super boring. But yeah, I find joy in camping and being outdoors, which is why I feel like this class is extremely appropriate, because we basically are outdoors quite often. And I feel like this is a skill. I have 3 kids and 1 on the way. So even more, I feel like I should figure it out eventually. So thank you.
We're so happy to have you in class. And Rhea is the one that basically, she sparked this class. So we started with her and then went outwards. So it's great to see so many faces here. All right, Laura, up to you now. Oh, she's putting, okay, Laura said, I'm on Maui, currently putting a baby down for a nap, so I'll be watching, but I can't talk. I'm doing this as a refresher since I have a 10-month-old. Awesome, nice to meet you, Laura. And Alyssa's daughter, is Alyssa back or is she still in her meeting?
She's still in her meeting, so she'll be.
What's your name?
My name's Emmy, and my little brother's Kaizen.
Awesome, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us. All right, okay. So does anyone have a personal experience with CPR or choking that you'd like to share? You can share it now, or as we go on in the class, you can also share it then. Anyone? Maybe later? Okay, all right.
Sorry,
So
I have a quick one if you don't mind. I was out swimming one day and we saw a man that needed help, and he was a really big man, like 350 pounds, and he really needed help. He was foaming at the mouth, and my now husband and I like swam him in and had to like literally like drag him across the rocks, and it was just like a really horrific thing. And I remember once I got there like and got him on the rocks, I realized I didn't even know what to do next, and my sister stepped in and just like pushed me out of the way and started doing compressions, and you could just tell it was a drill that had kicked in for her, and she was focused in on doing it, and she was able to do that until the lifeguards got there and they were able to get his heart beating again and get a pulse. He did end up dying in the hospital later, but yeah, that was my experience.
Well, and it's so important to tell those types of stories too, though, because I think a really important part of that story is that someone did something. And so just imagine being the family members of that man, right? You guys dragged him in. Christy jumped in and did compressions. So now at least they knew that everything was done that could have been done to save his life, you know, and unfortunately, sometimes our bodies just can't. So now we'll go to Heidi, and Heidi, same as everybody else. So name, occupation, where you're joining us from, what brings you joy, but then please share with us a recent story, because you're on the ground, you know, doing this all the time, of how bystander CPR helped you with your job and maybe even saved a life.
Yep. So I'm Heidi. I'm a paramedic supervisor over here in the Peely. I actually just got off work this morning. Something that brings me joy is my family. I love spending time with them. I love that we're all healthy and get to be with each other. Yeah, work has been crazy busy. I have actually a lot of stories I could tell you, but I'll do two. So one, a lot of drownings are happening right now. The tourists are back, and unfortunately they don't know their limitations. So a lot of people get into trouble in the water. We had one gentleman that was found. They thought he was a turtle, so people didn't do anything for quite a while. And his downtime, unfortunately, was too long. And even though everything that we did, it wasn't enough. But if people saw something abnormal, pulled him in, maybe if it was quick enough, we could have saved his life. On the other hand, there was a gentleman who, there was a gentleman that got into trouble while snorkeling. It was witnessed, so family member were able to get him back on a snorkel boat. He went unresponsive. They did CPR and he woke up, and then they were able to bring him to shore, and we were able to, just with simple, like putting a mask on him and help him breathe, be able to take him to the hospital, and he gets to say hi to his family and be with his family members. So, oh, sorry, I'm getting choked up. So just you guys, the public doing something, saved that man's life, and he gets to be with his family. And in the other case, nobody did anything, and he doesn't got to go home to his family. So it's so important to do this. And sorry. And that's why I teach this with Malika, because it makes a huge difference and it saves people's lives. Oh, sorry.
No, Heidi, I'm so thankful to you. So Heidi reached out to me after, I'll tell you my story in a second, but Heidi reached out to me to do this together and to partner. And she's so passionate about it. And I always felt like, who am I to know this kind of stuff and to do this kind of stuff? I'm not a doctor. I don't know anything about medicine. And she's the one that I'm so happy to have you in class doing this with me, because you tell it from the first responders' viewpoint, that it is so, when Heidi says that when she shows up on scene and she sees one of us in the community doing something, she breathes a sigh of relief. She's so thankful and so grateful.
It gives people a shot, but like, there's no shot if people don't do anything. Like, it's so grim. But if people do something, if they recognize, if they have this training, then they don't hesitate. They go up there, just like Kimmy's sister, Christy. She knew. She's like, here, wait, I know what to do. And even though that gentleman didn't survive, everything was done for him to give him a shot. So if people know this and give this person a shot, there's survival rates. Like this guy, he gets to go home to his family, and that's all that matters, is he gets to go home and be with his wife, be with his son, and live another day.
Yeah, I think today might be an emotional class because we know so many people. So I guess on that note, I will tell you my story of why I'm up here, a meteorologist teaching CPR. I'm Malika. I'm coming to you from upcountry Maui. And the thing that brings me joy is being in Olinda on our lot and just breathing in nature and watching the kids run around and be in nature. And I know I haven't officially started teaching you anything yet, but it's very important for you to know why this is so important, and sharing our stories really helps to illustrate that. And it also gives you real life examples of what to do and what not to do. So I'll tell you my story and then we'll go straight into the content of the class, I promise. Okay, so, well, I'll never forget it. It was June 3rd, 2016. was a gorgeous day. I had gone on a boat trilogy out in Lahaina. It was for a coral reef survey for work. I was reporting on it for the news. So I was in the sun all day, and my husband and son were headed to the Big Island for a baby luau. And so we had a sitter covering the time between when he had to leave and when I would get back home. So I got home and paid the sitter, and I tiptoed in to check on my then 7-month-old beautiful baby girl, Waipuna, and she was sleeping soundly. I even took a little Snapchat video, #momlife, and I went to take a nap. And I was a little stressed out because I had an event that evening and no babysitter since my husband was away. And so emceeing an event with a 7-month-old was something new, but I definitely knew I needed to get some rest. So I was just like out like a light. And in my dreams, I remember hearing a cough. Show of hands, how many of you have heard your kids cough in their sleep and just ignored it? Yeah, so that was me, but then I heard it again. And I have no idea what came over me, but the only way I can describe it is like mama bear. And I just sprinted into her room. And it was primal, you know, my eyes are like searching, just trying to figure out what's happening, what's wrong. You know, a million thoughts are going through my head. Is she choking? What is she choking on? Did she pull off her diaper? Did she rip off a button? Did she pull something down from outside of the crib? Just so many questions and no answers. And I had no idea what was happening. And my family's hero, you know, my husband, like he's the one that saves the day. I'm the one that loses my shit. He's the one that saves the day. And he wasn't there, you know, he's on a plane and I'm all alone. And my instincts were telling me that she was choking. And I had been trained in CPR. So I had gone to this infant choking class and CPR class before the birth of Jackson, my first child, who's now 8. But at the time he was 3. So I had taken this class 4 years prior to this incident. And we'd gone through the motions of back slaps. And at the time they did blind finger sweeps. I never had to use it on him. I mean, first child, so there was like no choking hazards anywhere. But now here I am and I'm faced with this and I'm all alone. So I'm in the room and I picked her up out of the crib and I was cradling her neck like this. And I just remember like looking into her face and just feeling like mommy help me. And so I flipped her over, and it was very natural to do this because I'd already gone through the motions. And she, you know, I held her like this with my hand, propping her up, and I did back blows. You know, I did what I had been taught. And I want you to know that by going through the motions today, it's going to feel like a lot to remember, but the muscle memory, it's going to kick in because it did for me. And I really wasn't listening that well. So I just continued doing back blows. And it's so much harder than you think you'll ever do it, but it's so important to just do those back blows. And I kept doing them and I kept doing them. I sat on the bed and put her on my knee. I did it standing. I did like everything I could think of. I did so many back blows that later that day I came into the room and I almost slipped and fell because right below that spot where I was doing the back blows, there was an area this big of thick mucus right underneath where I was doing that because her body was trying so hard to remove that item as well. So I continued doing the back blows and nothing's happening and nothing's happening and nothing's happening. So finally I kind of tip her to the side because, you know, gravity, like I didn't want to bring her up like this because maybe then the thing would go down farther. And I look into her mouth and I see this. It's a hair clip. I knew exactly which one it was. It has these little flowery, you know, felt things on one side and it has metal on the other side. And when I had tiptoed in to check on her, I missed it. Like I did the mom scan and I missed it. And our babysitter must have put her down with a clip in her hair. So like maybe she was sleeping on it. I don't know. Like all I know is that I went in and checked and I did not see it. And so now here it is in her throat. And I did the other thing that I had been taught right, with the muscle memory. So I took my pinky finger and I put it in her mouth and I did a blind finger sweep. And it pushed the item farther down her throat. And in that moment, all I could imagine was this metal like lacerating her throat, and that like I knew it was bad. I knew it was wrong. Like that's not what I should be doing. So I didn't continue doing that at all. And in that moment, I just felt so desperate and like an unfit mom. Like I had no control. And they were the longest seconds of my life, because in trying to help her, I may have done something to hurt her. So my mind is racing and I just keep doing back blows. That's all I know what to do, and nothing's happening and nothing's happening. And I mean, that's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over and you get the same result, right? And so I did the only other thing I could think of, which was to see if I could grab it. And so I wasn't taught this, but in the moment, I just, knew that I needed to do something. So I reached my fingers in and I was able to grab onto these little felt pieces and I was able to pull it out. I mean, huge relief. But I felt so down on myself, like so guilty and ashamed. And I almost didn't tell my husband about it. He was on an airplane, so I couldn't have called him anyway, which is probably what the first thing I would have done would have been to probably call him. But it was just so emotional and I didn't feel like I could tell a person yet. So I ended up turning on my camera and just kind of like letting it all out and just like sobbing out the story, holding Vaipuna. And when I finally did get up the courage to tell Kaimi, he told me, "You did the right thing." And he told me that I should share my story. And so I ended up sharing my story. I had a blog at the time, and all of these parents started coming out of the woodwork and just wanted to learn and wanted to know what to do. And so that's kind of how all of this came about. I didn't realize how rampant choking is. So many people have stories to tell, and it's really easy to prevent, but if you don't prevent it and if it happens, it can get really bad really quickly. And so it's amazing how underreported it is, because it is so easy. It's so easy to just do the right thing and you've solved the problem. For my situation, this was an uncommon thing for someone to choke on. And so the air was basically, children usually have rocks or ice or marbles or something that's completely blocking their airway. So when you do the back blow, it just comes out right away. But with this, the air was able to pass on either side of this item. And that's why it had been so difficult for me. It was explained to me later for me to remove that. And so I had a nurse friend who actually saved her daughter's life doing CPR, who connected me with the American Heart Association, the Aed Institute, and then Heidi, jumped on my social and we connected. And so that's how we got here, guys. I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy you're here, because we really hope that you won't ever have to go through the things, that we've gone through. And so that's that. Whew. All right, deep breaths. So I did find out later, because I always minimized my story and was just like, oh, well, nothing happened and it's, everything was fine and blah, blah, blah. And I did find out later that things could have been so much worse, which wasn't very comforting. But also the things I realized from going through that is, number one, I didn't call 911. And at the time I lived 30 seconds from the hospital. But if things had gone bad, no one was on the way to help. And number two, I did an old technique. I did the blind finger sweep. And like Kimmy was saying earlier, it's so important to stay up to date and to do those repetitions, do the drills. So there's that. But then on the plus side, right, the mama instincts, they're not going to fail you. That muscle memory kicked in and I did what I had been taught. And we hope that you'll never have to use these techniques, but if you do, have the confidence that you will spring into action because of what you learned today. All right, so now that we've all stopped crying, FAQs. So I'm going to have you do thumbs up or thumbs down, okay? So do you need to be certified, like a certified card holder, in order to perform CPR? Yes or no? What do you think? Everyone's going to copy Heidi. No, you're right. You don't have to be certified in order to perform CPR. In fact, well, anyone can do CPR, and that's why when you call 911, and you don't know how to do it, they will tell you how to do it, right? So anyone can do CPR. You don't have to be a card holder. Okay, yes or no? If you are a card holder, does that mean you must help? You're all kind of right. So if you're a first responder and you are on the clock, yes. First responders need to help. If they are wearing their uniform, they need to help you. Now, if they're off the clock, they don't. They have free choice, and so do you. So if psychologically, emotionally, this would be difficult for you to do the actual action of compressions, you're not forced to help someone just because you have the knowledge or you're certified, right? But there's also so many other ways that you can help, and you'll learn those today as well. Okay, should you be afraid of someone suing you for performing CPR? Yes or no? We have the Good Samaritan law. The Good Samaritan law covers us. So no, you should not be afraid of someone suing you for performing CPR. Now, on the other hand, what's the most likely thing for, when would you be most likely to actually do CPR? On a stranger or on someone you know and love? Someone you know and love. So the chances of you performing CPR on a stranger are low anyway. But if that were to happen, just know that the Good Samaritan law does cover you. Okay, I always bring this one up because my dad has actually said this to me, and I feel like all of our parents might at some point say something like this. So if someone says, don't call 911, I don't want to pay for the ambulance. Should you still call 911? Yes or no? Heidi, maybe you can chime in.
So whenever there's a medical emergency, or if you think somebody needs help, call 911. For us to show up, there's no bill. Nothing gets generated unless we transport the patient. So if anything is that you're concerned about, or if you see something, it's that saying that's going around. If you see something, say something, do something. So if you see something, just call 911. We just had it yesterday. A little girl fainted and somebody called 911. We showed up. The family had no idea 911 was called, but somebody was concerned and then called on their behalf, which was good because then we got to check out this little girl. So call. When in doubt, just call.
Yes, awesome. Okay, the other question we often get is, how many ambulances are there on Maui?
You ask me this question every time and I don't remember. You always
I think it's 11. I think we decided it was 11. She counted them all up once. So what that means is we have one ambulance per 14,000 people here on Maui, right? Not great. And Heidi, maybe you can talk about response times.
Yeah, so whenever there's a medical emergency, depending on the type of call, if it's a cardiac arrest call, police, fire, and us are always sent. Police usually gets there on scene first, and then fire, and then us. So for us, generally it takes about 7 minutes if we're in quarters to get to the call. So 7 minutes. If we're not in quarters, if we're like transporting or coming back from the hospital, like being in the Pili, it could be an hour before you get an ambulance. And there's only 2 ambulances on the west side. One's in Lahaina, one's in the Pili. There's 2 on the south side. There's 2 in town, and there's 2 up country. So take one of those ambulances out of their district if they're on another call. Just think of the wait time that person has to wait or to get help. So
and
yeah,
the other thing, Heidi, maybe you can talk about that when it comes to CPR, why you don't transport right away.
Yeah, so this was just another drowning I had. their best shot to give them, we carry on our ambulance, we have everything the ER has, everything that the emergency room has to run a cardiac arrest, we carry in our ambulance. And their best shot to get pulses back are right there right now. So like, it might be inconsiderate for all these people at the beach to see us running a code on the beach because it's their vacation and they don't want to see it, but we're trying to give that person every shot they got to get pulses back. And so we had, like, my last code I had, the wife was like, can't we get a helicopter? Is there anywhere else we can go? And it's like, you have to explain to them, no, this is the only shot he's got to get his heart beating again. So don't be surprised if we stay on scene for 30 minutes trying to get somebody's heart beating again.
That was something I didn't know until Heidi told me. So I always like her to share, these little tidbits. Okay, so yes or no, as a community responder, do we still give rescue breaths? Okay, so state protocol in Hawaii is no breathing. That's what they call high performance CPR. So if you imagine a water hose, right? You turn it on. It's going to take a little while, right, for that water to come out the other end of the hose. So if I turn off the water for a few seconds, when I stop to give that breath, and then I turn it back on, again, it's going to take a while for the water to come back out the other end of that hose. So turning on the hose is our heartbeats or our compressions. So we are trying to save the brain and we want to keep that heart beating. So the blood continues to flow to all of our organs, especially the brain. So don't stop compressions. That is your priority. Now, 30 to 2, 15 to 2, whatever you may have learned in the past is not wrong. But especially if you are alone, you should never stop pumping to give a breath. So research shows that breathing is a nice to have thing, but not need to have thing. And the most important thing when you recoil off and onto the chest, when you're doing those compressions, the act of pushing up and down on the chest and releasing, it's actually going to draw latent air into the lungs. And that's like clean air too. And most people don't know how to give proper breaths anyway, right, Heidi?
No. And let's be honest, a lot of these people in cardiac arrest, sometimes there's vomiting coming up out of their mouth. If you blow air in, if you're not doing it right, you're blowing it right into the stomach. That stomach's going to get full of air. Whatever's full in that stomach might just be coming right back out. So just focusing on chest compressions, they'll get that passive air and that oxygenated blood will keep going up to the brain. So that's all we want. We want them to wake up and be able to say hi to their family.
Well, and it's COVID now, so it's not like we want to put our mouths on strangers anyway, right? And something to note when it comes to, because people always ask, well, how come we're not doing the breaths? But just know that since the protocol has changed from stopping to give the breath and then getting back on to the heart, that people are no longer brain dead when they survive sudden cardiac arrest. So what was happening before is, right, that brain, the hose was being turned off. The brain wasn't getting the blood. And so people would survive, but their quality of life was no good. Now, because people continue to pump, right? Maybe someone is giving rescue breaths that knows how to do it. Great, good for you. But we don't need that. We continue to pump on the chest. Now these people are back to normal after they survive sudden cardiac arrest. And Heids, anything new because of COVID? Any new protocols or anything we should think about?
Well, for us, there is, like, we have certain new equipment that we're putting on patients that are like bacterial filters when we are breathing for them. But if I was like out off duty and somebody went into cardiac arrest, I wouldn't do rescue breathing for me just because of COVID. I would just do high performance chest compressions. And then if the equipment showed up, then I would use like the BVM or whatever they have that I'm trained in. But if I was just a lay person, like at the beach or out and about and somebody went into cardiac arrest, I would just focus on some really good compressions. And we know it works. Like, we have a mutual friend, my coworker, her husband went into cardiac arrest at home. And she just did, and she's an EMT, and she just did chest compressions for, I think, 16 minutes. Police showed up with an AED. I can't remember how many times they shocked him, but he woke up and now he's completely fine, total brain function, is able to live a normal life, just has a little like a pacemaker now, in case that happens again, that will shock him. So it's like, that's proof right there that just chest compressions saved his brain function.
And the last FAQ is, what do I do if it's a non-emergency medical situation? And so the poison line, so write this down. If it's not, you probably already have the little magnet on your fridge, but the poison line is 1-800-222-1222. 1-800-222-1222. So very easy to remember. You can put it into your phone. The poison line is so important because, well, Heidi, why don't you tell people?
So I use the poison line quite often. Anytime we go to like pediatric, they might have gotten into parents' medicine or some kind of cleaning product. Like they didn't know, they're like, maybe my child swallowed this, or even adults like who have accidental overdoses or intentional overdoses. I'll call the poison line. You talk to a nurse. They're able to look up all the information on what was ingested or what they were exposed to, and they can tell you what you need to do. If you need to call an ambulance or the treatment that you can do at home. And then also what it generates a case number. So if you did call 911 and I show up and you tell me, oh, I already called poison control. When I call them, your information's in there of the case that's happening. So then when we transfer and go to the hospital can already know all the information that was given from poison control. It's a super helpful hotline. Like I've used it for myself. I had got sodium hydroxide, which is like lye, on my hand, and didn't realize it, and my skin was sloughing off. And I'm like, what did I just touch? So read the ingredients, called poison control, and she told me what to do. So it's a great asset to be able to contact them.
And you can call them, they're registered nurses. You can call them about things that aren't related to ingesting. So yeah, that's what they've told me. So you can call them for any other kind of situation that you're concerned about. So, if I know we generally would call like our doctor or, someone that we trust, but if you can't get in touch with them or if it's after hours, this is a resource for you to call in case you just don't know what to do. And you don't feel like it's 911 status, right? Okay, so that leads us to 911. I know this may seem like a common sense type of thing, but it's really important to talk about how to call 911. I had an emergency. I didn't even think to call 911. It didn't even cross my mind to call 911. Our friend that Heidi was just talking about, she's a paramedic that had to save her husband's life. She had difficulty calling 911. I mean, the irony was not lost on her that she is the person that comes when people call 911, and she herself had difficulty calling 911. So we're gonna get our phones out. So of course you can use Siri or Alexa or any of those, voice type of things to call 911. But when it comes to your phone, I don't know about you, but like I just swiped or whatever, I have Face ID. And so I'm in Instagram. So I have an emergency and I grab my phone and I'm in some random place on my phone, right? So already I'm having to like swipe up. Now, okay, tap on phone, that's 2. Now tap on keypad 3, and then 911, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've had to tap 7 times and, maybe not get to where I want to be because I'm so, the anxiety is up and the adrenaline is up because something's happening. I'm not sure what to do, right? So there is a way to call 911 very easily on your phone. And you just tap the side button fast 5 times. Doop, 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 doop. Mine is like really sticky these days. It's a new phone. Did anybody get in there? So
I'm scared, dude. I feel like I actually might call.
You won't, because you have to slide it, right?
Oh, there.
Oh, I might actually started dialing. So anyway, I just cut it off.
Slide it. Now they're going to give me a call back, Malika.
I know.
Okay, that's what it looks like. Did you hear
the safety avenue on it? It just called 911.
Yeah.
Did you hear
for Android?
Oh,
for Android?
Gosh, I need to look up Androids. Google it though, because you can go into your phone and there are settings in the SOS part of your general the general settings. So if you go to general settings, there should be a little box that has SOS, and tap on that and explore that. So make sure you guys explore the SOS feature of your phones. And if you guys heard Katie in the background, you heard the boop, boop, boop. That's the countdown. So if you tap, I think it's auto call, then when you do the side button fast, the auto call will begin to call 911, but it gives you a warning. So it goes boop, 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 and then you can stop it before it calls 911. Mine does not, I turned auto call off because I have children, and now my buttons are really sticky, but back in the day, they could just tap on it and then all of a sudden they'd be calling 911, right? So I have that off, but I have call with side button on. So that's what I would recommend as far as that goes, because now I have this and all I have to do is swipe. So I swipe, so I tap side button fast, swipe, and it calls 911 for me, okay? Also, you see there, it says medical ID. So you can also get the medical ID info to them. So that's all in your SOS app on your phone. So settings, and then emergency SOS. You can tap on that. And then within the emergency SOS, see, I have my call with side button on, but I have auto call off. And then I've added in my emergency contacts. So these are all just tools that we now have that our parents never had. Okay, and Laura said for Android, first hold down the power button until you see an option for emergency mode. Tap it, and that will bring up 5 options: flashlight, emergency, share my location, phone, and internet. Okay, so that's in the chat, Emily, if you wanted to check that out. And what else? You can call 911 from your computer, clearly. You can text 911. So I called 911 to ask them about all the different ways to call 911. And they were like, we don't want people calling 911. Because there are so many accidental calls, right? So definitely, yeah, lock it before you pocket is their saying. But they did say that you can text 911. So when would you ever text 911? Maybe a home invasion, or, you know, who knows, right? And maybe you're choking and you can't talk and you're alone. So there are different situations that could happen where you can't speak for whatever reason, and you could text 911. So it's not the ideal way to contact 911, but it's just good to know, right? Like, who knew you could text 911? Also, if you call from a landline, they have a physical address that is linked to your phone number. So when you call from a landline, which a lot of us don't have anymore, that happens. When you call from a cell phone, that doesn't necessarily happen. They might know your general location, but it's not always specific, and you're really gonna have to be able to tell them specifically where you are. So when I leave the house, I haven't done this in a while because of COVID, but back before when I used to have babysitters. So if you ever have someone watch your children, I would just do this. It's my old address, but write on a piece of paper your address, 911 and your phone number, and just give that, or have it posted somewhere where if there was an emergency, someone would know what to do and how to get 911 to your location. Maybe there's a giant mango tree by your driveway. Is there a gate that leads up to your driveway? So all of these things are things to kind of think about if you're leaving the house. It's good for you to know as well. I mean, I think I would probably forget my address if something was happening to someone in my family and I was completely, on adrenaline. So having it written down is a really good tip for anyone. And that way, when you call 911, whoever it is that's there, my parents don't know my address by heart, so if my mom was watching my children, this would be super, super helpful for her. What else? Let's see. Oh, if you have an old phone that's out of service, you can actually plug it in somewhere. Just make sure it's charged. And Heidi?
Yes.
You're the one that taught me about this.
Which one? The phone?
Yeah, the old phone.
Yeah, so it doesn't even have to be it can just be an old phone that doesn't even have service on it. So if, especially if you have kids, like Malika's kids are the perfect age to have it. It can be like in a certain corner, you're saying, this is the emergency phone. If I'm not home, we can use this phone to call 911. And it just has to be charged. And it's honestly the coolest thing. So now I have phones that are dead around the house, or I give them to like my nieces. I'm like, hey, you can just keep this charged in case you have to call 911 because you don't need service. And then home alarms. Like if you have a home alarm system, you can call 911 off of that. You can just hit, I think there's just a 911 or emergency button, and then that'll call 911.
Yeah, and it's really important to talk to your children about calling 911. How do we, so you just learned all these things today. Sit down and talk to them. Tell them about calling 911. Tell them how to, when would they need to get help? So are you alone at home watching children? So, and clearly they need to be old enough to understand this, but you'd be surprised. Very young children have called 911 and gotten help for their parents. But, you know, like I told my kids, hey, if you can't wake mommy up, jump on her, jump on me. And if I still don't wake up, this is what I want you to do, right? So, and that's going to be a unique situation for each and every one of us. Maybe you have, you know, a tutu that lives next door, maybe whatever it is, you have your situation. For my children, we have a long driveway, but I told them, you know, go check Robin and Jen's house first, you know, and then I let them know that if we have an emergency, I just want you to know that my children have been told to come and like pound on your door, you know? And so there's at least a course of action that they should take. So how do they call 911? Who do they go and get in order to help them? All right, so now we're going to go into some definitions of just things you need to know, just really basic. And Heidi, I'll probably have you do most of these definitions, but we'll start with just an acronym. So the acronym you need to remember, it's called the chain of survival, is CPR. Call, so that's call 911. Push, so the push is the actual compressions, and respond. And responding with an AED is so important. So call, push, respond. We're going to call 911. We're going to push hard and fast in the center of the chest, and then we're going to respond with an AED. And before we get into the actual compressions and how to do them, we'll understand the difference between a heart attack and sudden cardiac arrest. Heidi?
So a heart attack, somebody can be awake, talking, they're alive still. A heart attack just means there's a part of their heart that's not getting the oxygenated blood that it needs. There's an injury happening within the heart. And when somebody's in cardiac arrest, there's two things that are going on. It's either the heart has stopped completely and isn't beating at all, or the heart is kind of quivering. It's not sure what's going on, but it's not beating blood properly. And that's when you need the AED to shock the heart to get it back into a normal beating pattern. A heart attack can always lead to cardiac arrest if they don't get definitive care, if they aren't taken to the ER. So that's why it's so important that if somebody is complaining of chest pain, make sure you call 911 right away. Because if they are having a heart attack, the saying is time is tissue. So the longer you wait, the longer that heart goes without oxygenated blood, and that entire part of the heart could then die. And then it only takes a matter of time till the whole heart doesn't get any oxygen. So it's super important to activate 911 and get them to care, because you don't want to have them go into cardiac arrest.
Right, a heart attack can lead to sudden cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
But sudden cardiac arrest, it's very sudden. Actually, let me share screen and I will show you an example. So this is an example. So look at the guy in the background of this video. It's not super graphic, so that's why I can show it to you. They flip him over, checking to see if he's breathing. So that just shows you sudden cardiac arrest is sudden, right? They just drop. So
And then an important thing with sudden cardiac arrest, for every 1 minute that compressions aren't being done, somebody loses 10% of life expectancy. So after 10 minutes, I mean, it's slim if we can get a heartbeat back. And even if we got a heartbeat back, they went 10 minutes without oxygen to their brain. So it's super important. Like when you see something like that, you'll do all the training that we were going to teach you and then start doing compressions, because that's saving that person's life and brain.
So CPR stands for Cardiopulmonary Resuscitation. You don't have to remember that. Remember the acronym: call, push, respond. And an AED stands for an automated external defibrillator. You don't have to remember that either. But an AED then delivers a shock. So do you want to explain how an AED works?
So when to use an AED, like you're going to put it on, if there's one available, if somebody's in cardiac arrest, put it on them regardless. It detects if it has a pulse, and it'll tell you no shock advised. If it has 0 pulse, it'll still say no shock advised. The AED will only shock 2 rhythms, which is called VTAC and VFib, which you don't really have to worry about, but it will talk to you. And if it says a shock advised, then you'll shock the heart. And that electrical pulse that it sends is just shocking that heart, almost like stunning it to get it back to a normal beating pattern.
So if your heartbeat is abnormal, it's trying to eliminate that abnormal rhythm and bring it back. It's like when, well, back in the day, now you can't just unplug your computer, but remember when we used to have the old computers and it wasn't working, you just unplugged it and then you plugged it back in, it worked again. So that's the basic premise of how an AED works. So in Hawaii, our save rate has gone up a little bit. It used to be 8%, and in the last couple of years, it's gone up to 10 to 12%, but that is not a good survival rate for sudden cardiac arrest. We can get it up so much higher, and community classes like this is what helps to do that. In Seattle, they have classes like these. They make it a huge priority, and their save rate is 60 to 70%. In Japan, 98% of people are willing to help you if something like this happens. In Hawaii, only 24%. So, you know, it's really important for you to be in class here today because it helps to up those numbers. The AEDs are so important. They're now in all of our airports, and the AED Institute is who, supplies us with our mannequins and helps us to do this volunteer work. And they have put AEDs in every single airport in Hawaii. Before they did that, the survival rate from sudden cardiac arrest was 0%. 0. Since then, it's 75 to 80%. So if you had an emergency in the airport, you can't run more than 90 seconds before you would see one of these on the wall. And it's amazing. So we have one of the best save rates in the entire country at our airport, which is so cool to know. So now we'll talk about the difference between responsiveness and unresponsiveness. In that video, I think that was very clear that he was unresponsive. He dropped. So Heidi, why don't you explain responsiveness and unresponsiveness?
So somebody who's responsive is talking to you, looking at you. They're normal. Someone who's unresponsive, they look sick. They won't have pink coloring in their face most of the time. And then there's a thing called, they won't be breathing properly either. There's a thing called agonal breathing. And it's almost like snoring, but really weird snoring. It's like their brain's kind of telling them, I need air. I'm not getting the air that I need. And I always kind of describe it as taking a fish out of water. And you're taking that fish out of the water and it's trying to gasp because it's out of it's not in its normal environment. And kind of that's what agonal breathing looks like. If you see any of that, if you hear any of that, if they look sick, they're not responding to you, go right into doing CPR.
And the important thing to note when it comes to the agonal gasp is that some people sometimes misinterpret an agonal gasp as a response. And so it's important to know that the agonal gasping is not okay, they're fine. It's actually a sign, a telltale sign that they are in sudden cardiac arrest.
And a lot of people mistake that and think they're okay. And like Malika said, I don't know what the percentage is, but last I checked, which was a few years ago, it's 70% of cardiac arrests happen at home. So most likely, if this, hopefully it never does, it's somebody you know, it's a loved one. So you'll know like, hey, you are not breathing normal. This isn't how you act at all. So you'll know like, wait, I got to start doing something.
Well, our friend, so the story that Heidi told you earlier, the reason she knew her husband was in sudden cardiac arrest is he was snoring and he doesn't snore. And so it's really, you know, good to know, you know, your people, right? She knew, nope, he doesn't snore. This is not normal. She said she pulled him, he was on the bed. She pulled him off because you shouldn't be doing CPR in a bed, clearly, because when you're doing compressions, the bed is going up and down. So she pulled him off of the bed. She said she pulled him off so abruptly that his head bounced, you know, but she just knew that he needed to just be on a hard, flat surface. She needed to get on his heart as soon as possible. And that's what she did. And she ended up saving his life. And then we talked about calling 911. So now we can go straight into our compression. So if everyone can get your couch cushion out, and then make sure you turn on your cameras as well. And we're gonna kind of point, you know, so that we can see what you're doing. Perfect. Okay, so there are several steps that we need to take before we do CPR. So we need to determine, does this person actually need CPR? So I have hand motions and that help me to remember. So the first one, and everybody do this with me, is you're gonna make sure the scene is safe. Make sure the scene is safe. Make sure the scene is safe. All right, thank you. The next one is we're gonna tap and shout. So you're gonna tap. Hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Okay, step one, make sure the scene is safe. Step two, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Step three, you're gonna yell for help. Okay, so hands up, help, 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 help. Okay, step one, make sure the scene is safe. Step two, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Help, 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 help. Clearly, if you know that you're in an area where, well, actually, no, I'll take that back. Scream for help no matter what. You never know who could be walking by in the next gulch. Who knows? Like the next door neighbor's walking their dog. Scream for help. Okay, so make sure the scene is safe. Tap and shout, hey, help, help, help. Now we're gonna hope someone comes to help. So we're gonna give people jobs. You're gonna point and you're gonna be bossy about it because you don't want there to be any uncertainty, right? Because if you say, call 911, we could have 100 people call 911. We could have 0 people call 911. Both are a problem, right? We wanna be really clear and point at someone. Someone might be about to call 911, right? But if you point and say, hey, you call 911, either someone who's calling 911 will yell out, hey, I'm doing it already, we're good. Or that person hopefully will be able to respond in some way, give you confirmation that they're doing it or pass it on to someone else. But at least you pass on that duty to someone else. Okay, so make sure the scene is safe. Hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Help, help, help. Call 911. Now you're gonna give 2 more directions. The second direction is go get an AED. So call 911, go get an AED. Not a lot of people know what an AED is. So if you need to explain that to people, or if you need, you know, there needs to be some juggling. These are messy situations, right? There needs to be some juggling of roles. So nobody knows what an AED is, or you know where the AED is. You can also just say, does anyone know how to do CPR? Hey, get on this person's chest, right? And you can take on one of these other roles, especially if, you know, emotionally, physically, mentally, you don't think that you can do the compressions. So these are all different roles. You can take any one of these roles. Okay, so call 911, go get the AED. The third thing is to have somebody go and meet the first responders. You want someone to be in charge of hearing the siren, going wherever the siren, so let's say we're at the mall, right? Go wherever the siren pulls up and be able to bring them back to exactly where that emergency is happening. Even at home, right? So we actually know of a situation that happened here on Maui. It's a friend of ours, the mother-in-law. He's actually a first responder. The gate at the bottom of the hill was locked. You need to have someone that can get the first responders to you. And unfortunately, in that situation, it was a choking situation and no one knew what to do. Nobody did the Heimlich or abdominal thrusts, and she ended up passing away. So it's a very important part of the process is to make sure that we know how to get first responders to wherever that emergency is taking place. Okay, so make sure the scene is safe. Hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Next. Help. Men, call 911, get the AED, go out to the street. All right, now we're gonna look down at our person and we're gonna scan to see, are they breathing normally? So what is normal breathing? It's not agonal gasping, right? So if that person is doing the fish out of water thing or snorting or snoring, doing something that does not look like normal breathing, you don't even need to check for normal breathing. Just get right onto the chest. So what does normal breathing look like? It's just a gentle rise and fall of the chest. So you're gonna scan their body for 5 to 10 seconds. If it looks like there's a gentle rise and fall of the chest, you can just put them on their side, wait till 911 comes, keep an eye on the situation and call it a day until either they go into agonal gasping and then you have to jump in. But if they are not breathing normally, that's when we jump into action. So are we gonna check for pulses? What do you think? Yes or no? Community responders are really bad at checking for pulses. We don't know how to do it properly. And you know what? We're losing time, right? Like Heidi said, every single minute that goes by, the chance of that person surviving goes down by 10%. So we don't want to spend 2 minutes trying to check someone's pulse. It's enough to see whether or not this person is breathing normally. And if they are not, just get on the chest. If they do not need CPR, you will know. CPR is a very aggressive, life-saving technique. And in fact, there was a woman at McKenna Beach who was sleeping very soundly. And people tried to wake her up and they did the whole thing and she didn't wake up. And so they started doing compressions on her and she woke up. She woke up and everything was fine. But it's better when in doubt, just go ahead and do the compressions. Okay, so again, let's do our thing. So make sure the scene is safe. Tap and shout, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Other things you can do here, knuckle rub, you can squeeze their arm, you can do the knuckle rub here. And then you know, if it's someone you know what they might respond to. So like, let's say it's an infant, right? What does your infant normally respond to? First of all, with an infant for that part of it, so you're still gonna do the, making sure the scene is safe, which, all right, if it's our child, how much of that are we doing? I'm not sure. I would just advise that we take an extra beat, right? To not jump into traffic or jump into a river or jump into, a situation that could make for more than one person. Having said that, I would jump into the river because if that's my child, that's what I'm doing, but take that extra beat, right? To do it as safely as you possibly can so that we're not now dealing with an even bigger situation. I have a friend who jumped in to save his dog, and the dog survived, and it was a flooding situation on Kauai, and he did not. And so we just want to make sure that the scene is safe. We do it as much as we possibly can, but it's reality. If it's our child, just take that extra beat. Make sure the scene is safe. So now the tap and shout for the baby is probably not, hey, hey, hey. It's definitely not, hey, hey, hey. We don't shake our baby. That happens a lot. Don't shake the baby. This is their most sensitive area. We're gonna tap on their foot, or you're their mama. If you know what they respond to, do that as well, right? Let's make sure the scene is safe. Tap and shout, help, help, help. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, so everything else is the same. So now we're not checking for a pulse and we're not going to breathe. So Heidi, do you want to do the
Compressions?
Yeah.
So I don't know, how many people know where the placement is? Where are you supposed to put your hands on somebody? Anybody? So I don't, like what I was taught, it's kind of the center of the chest in between the nipples. There's like this little, you'll see like a kind of a, it's called the xiphoid process. So right above the xiphoid process is where you're gonna wanna have your hand placement. So I interlock my hands. It's whatever you're comfortable with. But if you think about it, setting yourself up for success to do this for a long period of time is what you wanna do. So I interlock my hands. I use the palm of my hand for in the center of the chest. And then you have to make sure that you're close to the body. Like I'm smaller, so for me to do this for just 2 minutes straight is gonna be some hard work for me to do. Also other things, because this is a mannequin without arms. Human beings most likely come with arms. So you're just gonna wanna move the arm up over you, but still get super close to that body. And then I lock my elbows. And what you're doing is this position, now all I'm using is my hips and my thighs, which is the strongest part of your body. If you use just your arms, you're gonna get tired in about 30 seconds. But if you use this is like my tool. And then my hips and my thighs are the ones that are gonna be the strongest and last the longest to do this. And so then we're just gonna wanna start compressing the chest. So the rate, does anybody know the rate of how fast you're supposed to push on somebody's chest? Do you remember it? So it's at least 100 beats per minute. There's songs that they teach you, but I think now the newest studies that come out is, Malika, you can correct me, it's 100 to 120?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
So Staying Alive, of course. Uptown Funk, Baby Shark.
Baby Shark.
Baby Shark, do 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 do. Baby Shark, do 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 do. Baby Shark, do 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 do. Baby Shark.
And then what's important is how far do we want to go down on the chest? The easiest way to remember is we want to squish the chest pretty much in half. So if you, because they say like a third of the depth or whatever it is, that's hard to know. But if you can try and squish somebody's chest in half, you're going to compress that heart. The other hugest thing that you need to remember is to come all the way up off that chest. So when you push down, you want to come up because that's filling that heart with all that blood that needs to be pushed. When you push back down, goes up to the brain. So it's a nice little circle. If you don't allow your hands to come all the way up, you're not letting that heart fill up with all that nice blood to go back up to the brain.
So we need a hard, flat surface. You need to go deep enough. So, you know, Kimmy was talking about the 300-pound man. So we don't have a ruler with us. They say 2 inches. 2 inches would probably not be enough for a 300-pound man. So just try to go halfway down. They say a third of the way down when it comes to an infant, but research has shown that parents especially do not go deep enough. We're afraid of hurting our children. So just in your head, go halfway. That's all I need to remember. I have to go halfway down. Okay. When Heidi said that you need to recoil, if you're doing the right rate, you're probably recoiling enough, right? So you want to push down halfway down and then come up. So she likes this. You can do this. Some people like to, you know, position their fingers and go up like this. I've had students that don't have a lot of strength. They're smaller. And so they actually have to come off the chest and do that in order to go halfway. The main thing you need to remember is, what's our goal? Our goal is to go deep enough, fast enough, and be this person's beating heart. So how do I achieve that? It really doesn't matter how you achieve it. You just need to achieve it. And every situation is going to be different. We've taught children how to do CPR. And what we do is we have them stack their hands. So if Vi or Jackson were here, maybe Alyssa, your daughter and your son, they can stack their hands and put it on the center, and then they go together. Baby shark, do, 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 baby. But this could be for adults too. If there's only 2 of you and this person is really big and you can't get down halfway, go ahead and stack your hands. It's not ideal, but it's better than nothing or doing it inefficiently, right? The other thing is I had students that couldn't do it for whatever reason, because they can't bend their elbow, their wrist. So I had one girl and she did this. This is very difficult, but if it's all you have, right? There's actually research behind doing CPR with your heel. So yeah, what if my arm is broken, but I'm the only one there? You can do CPR with your heel. So the main thing is to remember that we have a goal, and the goal is to get halfway down, make sure you're recoiling so that the heart is filling up and you're squeezing all of that blood out so it runs to the brain and all the other organs and keeps this person alive. And so that's what you mainly have to remember. The song is really important because it helps to keep you on the right beat. And you're probably going to go faster rather than slower. So if you can kind of go more towards, you can find your own song online. You can go ahead and Google it and say, 100 beats per minute song, and, pick your favorite song, and you'll probably go a little bit faster when it comes to, the adrenaline. The good news is that now we have all these apps and other things. And so if you do have people there helping you, it's really easy for someone to also pull up. That could be another one of the things, right? Call 911, get an AED, and go out to the street. You can say, hey, can you go ahead and put a metronome out for me? And so you can literally, someone could go to YouTube and get that, but there are apps as well. And so you could have like until the AED gets there, the AED actually has a metronome with it as well. So that will help you to be on the right beat. We're not going to stop for more than 10 seconds ever. And the only time we're stopping is when the AED is on. What else? Oh, the Hubbard Technique. So the Hubbard Technique has saved lives. So they say every 2 minutes is a good time to switch. So hopefully when you call for help, a lot of people come. We've had instances at the airport where 19 people lined up to be there to do the Hubbard Technique and to take over from someone. So if you do have someone else there with you, why don't you guys try this? So the Hubbard Technique is so again, right, we've got our palm in the middle of the chest. You're gonna imagine it, and you're gonna make sure your arms are locked. You wanna be directly above. So you don't wanna be like this, yeah? This is not efficient. Directly above, and as Heidi said, you're moving from the hips. So you're not using your arm strength, you're using your body weight. Staying alive, staying alive, staying alive. Shark, do, 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 baby shark, do, 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 do. Okay, so now when you do the Hubbard Technique, you're gonna talk to that other person, you're gonna count them down. They're gonna be on the other side of this mannequin. So don't stop compressions. Try to see if you can talk while you're doing it. Okay, and that other person is gonna go 3, 2, 1. They'll be exactly as you were on this side, and now they're gonna take over. Yeah, so now I can wait until they need a break. When they need a break, they'll do the same with me. They'll go 3, 2, 1, and now I go. Because the goal is to not stop, right? We just need to continue doing the compressions. So what's the difference between an adult and a child? Not much. Still the exact same goal. We want to get deep enough. We need to recoil. We want to do it fast enough. And this child, so basically it's all common sense, right? So do I need 2 hands to get halfway down? Do I need only 1 hand with my compressions to get halfway down? It's whatever it takes. So with this child, I can do it with 1 hand, but I don't know why I wouldn't do it with 2, because this is a lot easier for me to maintain for a longer period of time. But it's exactly the same technique. It makes it easy for us. It's actually the exact same technique when we come to our infants. So with the infants, again, nipple line, just slightly below the nipple line is where you're going to be doing your compressions. In the book, they teach you 2 fingers. You can try that. I don't know. My fingers are not very strong and I do not like this, but Heidi and the guys at AMR will teach you to use your thumbs.
That's what I do. So
Yeah.
my thumbs are just stronger, but you can, and for the most time, like for pediatric arrest, most parents will be holding their baby too, or the fire guys will scoop up the baby, and then we can just also do compressions while holding the baby. Seen that done.
And if it's with the thumbs, you just kind of hold around the baby's chest, and it's going to be the same rate. Baby shark, do 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 do. Baby shark, do 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 do. Baby shark. Clearly, you're not going to be holding them up like this. I'm just doing this for you, but they'll be on a hard, flat surface. Or, like Heidi was saying, you know, I mean, we're all mamas here, and if we're trying to save our child, but we also want to get them to the first responders as quickly as possible, it is possible to do compressions while walking out to the road to meet, you know, the first responders. But if you do have a hard, flat surface and you are doing your compressions and you've got someone that can go out and get the first responders, then just focus on doing that. So it's, you know, it's a bunch of priorities that we like to talk about everything in our class, and then hopefully it never happens to you. But if you were in a situation, then at least you have a lot of tools to draw from in whatever situation ends up happening. So we know that every situation is different. Do you guys have any questions about infant, child, or adult CPR?
I do.
Yes, go for it.
Okay. What about if your kid is kind of more of like not a baby, but like a small toddler? Would you do, like, I probably couldn't hold him in my hands at this point and use my thumbs, but he's still small. Would I kind of do more of the child version, like an adult, or?
Yeah, it's whatever would compress that heart. So
Okay.
you do your fingers, that would create the depth that you need, or you can still just do your palm, but you won't go as forceful as if it was an older child or an adult. It's just finding that medium where you're compressing that chest.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was just kind of thinking about the goal. We need to get halfway down. So what does it take to get halfway down? Can you do it with your fingers? No? Okay, move on. Let's do one palm. You know, can I get down? No. Okay, let's do 2 palms. Can I get down? No. Okay, is there someone else that can come and help me? Or is there someone else who's stronger that can actually get down halfway? Any other questions? All right, cool. Could we see each of you do compressions? Why don't you all go ahead and do it? And we just want to make sure that we can correct any techniques. Baby shark, do 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 do. Baby shark, do 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 do. Baby shark, do 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 do. Malika, great.
These all look great.
Emily, great. Ooh, Kimmy, awesome. Erin, awesome.
Nice job, guys.
Yes, Rhea. Nice, Katie. Perfect, Alyssa. All right, cool. So the main thing again is to remember, you know, to go halfway down. So your couch cushion is clearly not ideal. You know, even the mannequins aren't ideal, to be honest, but just remember that you have to get halfway down. And if it's helpful, you can actually, you know, when everybody comes home from school or whatever, go ahead and look at where is that spot? So nipples, you know, go in, where would you put the palm of your hand, right? That's where the palm goes, because the palm is where all of that energy is going to go in. So just kind of look at where that area is that you would be pushing down on if that ever had to happen. And it's Murphy's Law, so hopefully it'll never happen.
Right. And then just remember, if you go down too low, you're going to be pushing on the stomach, and just FYI, whatever's in the stomach might just come up and say hi. So
low
being in that center of the chest is important.
So Heidi's talking about low this way, not low
Low this way. So if you go down by their stomach and you start doing compressions too low, everything that's in that stomach might come up.
And remember, so people always ask too, what if I push too hard? So Heidi, why don't you answer that question?
I don't think you can push too hard. The main thing is just to let recoil, but I know people are scared for broken bones, for broken ribs. That happens. But you heal from broken bones. You can't heal from a heart that doesn't get CPR. It's a dead heart. So just keep in mind that bones heal, hearts can't if nothing's done to them. My husband went on a 14-year-old that went into cardiac arrest, and they did CPR, and she had saved her. She had a anomaly in her heart, but now she has a little AICD for her, and she broke 6 ribs. They broke 6 ribs, but she now is alive, young teenager that gets to now hang out with her friends, be with her family because somebody did CPR. And that's the only reason why she's alive.
I'm going to share my screen again and show you, oh, oops, I just stopped sharing it. Let me try again. I'm going to show you what AEDs look like. So AEDs can look a variety of different ways. Here are some of the, so this is the one that I have, is this top one. It can look like that. It can look like this, the Zoll AED. There's this life pack one. This is a heart sign. So they can look many different ways. But we're going to show you, basically they all are, they have the similar parts. Oh, and before we move on, when do you ever stop doing CPR? So there's a few times that you stop. Either they wake up, they say, ow, right? Okay, you can stop. If EMS and fire arrive and they take over, you can stop. But Heidi, tell them, right? Bystanders.
We rely on you guys, and don't be surprised. Like I've been where me and my partner are the only ones who showed up, and there's a bystander doing CPR. So don't be surprised if we continue having you do compressions till somebody else shows up. Because there's just 2 of us, and we've got a lot of stuff that we want to try and get on board for this patient. So yeah, like Malika said, if they wake up, awesome. And until like police show up, we show up, but don't be surprised if we still have you do compressions.
And don't be surprised if you have, we're going to talk about the AED in a second, but you don't take the AED off of the person if they wake up. You just keep it on them. Don't be surprised if they again go into sudden cardiac arrest. Like clearly their heart is not working the way it's supposed to. And it's more likely that a person who is in this situation might go back into sudden cardiac arrest. So be ready, even if the person wakes up, to go ahead and start doing CPR again if it's needed. Okay, so here's my AED. This is the machine part of it. I've got my pads, and then I've got the connector. So it's super easy. You connect the connector to the AED, just pushes right in there, and then you turn it on. And when you turn it on, it tells you exactly what to do. My trainer is a little bit broken, so might tell you to ignore it at times, but you're going to take these guys and you're going to put them exactly where it says to put them. So this one says to put it on the, what is that, right shoulder. So I'm going to put it on the right shoulder. And you won't have tape. This is just for my trainer. On a normal person, you wouldn't have the tape. The other one says to put it on the bottom left. So I'm going to put it on the bottom left. So now before we put these pads on, what do we need to make sure to do so that this AED works properly? So the first thing is it has to be on the skin. So you need to make sure that it's dry and there's nothing on it. So that includes hair. And a lot of these AEDs, these whole systems, will actually come with a little baggie that also has a razor and scissors and gloves and bandages and things that you might need, because you might have to do a real quick shaving of the hair off of this person. If they've got hair that goes all the way up, all the way down, right where you're trying to put these pads, you got to get rid of the hair. If you have an extra set of pads, make sure there's an extra set though. You can put it down and kind of do the waxing thing. That could be an easy way to get the hair off. But there's also a razor. So you're gonna wanna just get that off. Maybe, the person bleeds or something, so you gotta wipe the blood off. If it's a drowning, you need to make sure that the person is dry where you're putting this on. This is conducting electricity. So the other thing is, if it's a drowning, you wanna make sure you pull that person far enough up the beach that the waves are not lapping onto them in any way. And this actually happened at McKenna. I saw a situation where they did not pull her up far enough, but they were completely, in on the compressions, and they had intubated her, and, it was like a whole thing already. And so I came up after they had already started doing everything, and it looked like they had the CPR under control. And so 3 of us ended up digging and building a berm, and just making sure that the water wouldn't come up to reach this woman. So there's a lot of different roles that you can take on in an emergency situation to help. Another one of Heidi's colleagues was saying, what could be helpful in some situations, because we are cutting off someone's bra, pulling down their swimsuit, we're exposing them, that sometimes it's helpful if people kind of create a blockade around the emergency situation, facing out and just, hey, nothing to see here, and turning people away so that we don't have like a big spectacle going on. So there's a lot of different ways that you can help in emergency situations.
Holding up a towel. I always try to remember when I'm in those situations, if that was my mom, I would hope that somebody respect her privacy as much as possible and hold up a towel. So it's not you're exposed to the world while you're having this medical emergency, and in cardiac arrest, at least somebody's thinking like, man, let's try and make a little bit of privacy, even though it's a very public situation.
Yeah, there's little things that, if you're not the one doing CPR, that you can do. Okay, so now we've cleared the chest. Let me see, were there any other? Okay, lying in water, got to move them out. Hair on the chest, we got to remove it. Okay, what if there's a pacemaker? So if there's a pacemaker, it's probably going to be, somewhere in this vicinity. And so you're just going to make sure that this pad does not go on top of the pacemaker. So it's just going to go somewhere else, farther up on the shoulder. If you're putting them where they're supposed to be, you probably wouldn't have it on the pacemaker. Having said that, with a child, their chests are smaller. And so if there's a child with a pacemaker, you really do need to kind of think about that. Like, where am I going to put this pad? When it comes to a child, this is actually my child mannequin, but you can see this child, quote unquote, has a big enough chest that I can put both of these pads on, and they're 3 to 5 inches apart. So what are these pads doing? We're trying to sandwich the heart in the middle, right? These 2 pads are communicating with each other. So if this chest was smaller and the pads were like this, we're not sandwiching the heart. So it's all common sense, just like with the compressions. So how hard should I do it? It's going to be common sense. You got to go halfway down. So you do whatever it takes to get halfway down. So with this, the goal is to make sure the heart is in the middle. So this works. But if it's an infant, it's going to depend on how big that child's chest is, right? How do we sandwich the heart? 1 in front, 1 in back. So that's the only change when it comes to an AED, when it comes to the difference between an adult child and an infant. It's just the heart needs to be in the middle, okay? So let's see. Medical patches. So yeah, anything that could be underneath this pad needs to be removed. It has to be skin. All right, so now I'm going to turn this on and you guys can listen in to what it says.
Remove clothes from patient's chest. Peel white pads from gray plastic. Stay clear of patient. Analyzing heart rhythm. Stay clear of patient. Analyzing heart rhythm. Shock advised. Stay clear of patient. Press the flashing orange button now. Shock delivered. Be sure emergency medical services have been called. It is safe to touch the patient. Begin CPR.
Everybody heard that okay? Okay, so you can see how it's very common sense, right? You're just gonna listen to exactly what this machine says and you're gonna do it. There are a couple of instances where you will ignore the machine. So you saw how long it took for them to say, after shock advised, start CPR. Once you push this orange button, you can get right back onto the heart. We know that every second counts. So don't wait that extra 10 seconds because we already know that it's been the 10 seconds that it took to analyze the heart and, you know, stay clear of patient, right? During that time, we're not doing compressions. But once that shock button is pressed, or if the machine says shock not advised, you get right back onto the heart. So the way that this kind of works and looks like in an emergency situation is that someone is doing compressions already, right? It's very rare that the AED is there at the same time as when compressions are taking place. So someone's doing the compressions. Okay, the AED is here. Okay, so they're gonna work around me. I'm gonna continue doing compressions while they work around me. Let's see if I can do it alone. Okay, this is child, so it looks like I can kind of do it alone. Not the best compressions of my life during that time, but I'm still making sure this child's heart is beating.
Stay clear of patient.
Stay clear.
Analyzing heart rhythm.
Say it nice and loud because in an emergency situation, you might not be able to hear this.
Patient.
And you want everybody else to hear it as well.
Heart
Stay
rhythm.
clear.
Shock advised. Shock delivered. Be sure emergency medical services have been called. It is safe to touch the patient. Begin CPR. For help with CPR, press.
I got like 15 compressions in between when they said shock delivered and it is safe to begin CPR. So that's the main thing you need to remember when it comes to the AED. Otherwise, you're just listening to what it says and you're just doing it. Anything to add, Heidi?
Oh, that was good. So every AED might look different, but they all give the same instructions. So some of them have like pads that are kind of connected with a strip in the middle. So you just follow the pictures. If you accidentally put the pad that's supposed to be on the side of the chest up by where the shoulder is, it's okay. You can put the other pad where the other one was supposed to be. It just does the same thing. The pictures are there just to help you. I mean, I still look at the pictures and look at, okay, this is where I'm putting them. So even if you get them a little mixed up, just put the other one where it was supposed to be.
And when it's the baby, so, you know, I'm doing the compressions. Now someone's trying to help me to get the pads on. It's basically like the Hubbard Technique, yeah? Because with the adult, they can work around your hands. With the infant, they can't. So I can talk to that other person. I'm gonna count them down. 3, 2, 1. And the other person would go ahead and slap this on, right? Continue. You can do the compressions right on top of that pad. Communicate with the other person. 3, 2, 1. Right, and we're waiting until the AED is turned on by whoever's in charge of that, and for the AED to say, stay clear. And at that point, stay clear. So if you're in charge of the AED, that's your job, is to do the really loud stay clear and to put the pads on. And hopefully if an AED is coming, that does mean that someone else is there to help you. And so you can work in tandem with someone to help save the patient's life. Any questions about AED use?
Erin?
I'm sorry if I missed it, but do you do the AED more than once, or how often do you do the AED?
So the cool thing about an AED, it reanalyzes every 2 minutes. So right after you analyze the first time, if a shock was given, right after that, you continue compressions. Most AEDs now have a metronome. So then you can just follow that tone. And then it's now counting down another 2 minutes. And then it'll talk to you again and say, stop compressions, analyzing heart. And then it will either shock it or just no shock advising, just continue in until other like police, fire, or we get there. And then we'll either have you stop or continue to help us.
Another really great time to switch. So when you don't have the AED, you just do the Hubbard Technique with CPR and you're waiting for the AED, right? And so you're doing 3, 2, 1, person on this side now takes over. With a baby, you're probably more so kind of like, on the side or maybe over here. And that's another one that if you're in a like confined space, like let's say it's an airplane, you don't have to do CPR just on this side of someone. If you have to, you can straddle someone and do CPR like this. It's the same thing. The palm of your hand is still going to go right there below the nipples. You're doing the exact same thing. 3, 2, 1, and then the person on this side takes over, right? Don't squat. You're gonna make sure this person can still have their airway open. But again, it's the goal. What's your goal, right? Your goal is to get halfway down, keep that heart beating. Doesn't matter where we're at on this person's body. We just need to go ahead and do our compressions. All right. Any other questions about AED use or CPR?
Just to be clear, when the AED says stay clear, do you stop compressions? That means no one's touching that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the reason why is that we're shocking the heart. So whatever else is touching that body, if it's going to get shocked. So that's why it's so important to stay clear when you need to shock the patient.
Okay.
And is there a different setting for a baby as opposed to a man?
Yeah, so all AEDs come with a attenuator usually, which is just like a little adapter that it's either totally separate pads that have the child picture on it, and then you plug that in, or some of them have like a little adapter that you plug in with the pads and then plug it into the machine.
But just know, so if you do have the pediatric pads, they're a little bit smaller. It's still going to be the same common sense. It's like, okay, can these 2 little baby pads still fit on the chest and the heart is in the middle? Are they 3 to 5 inches apart, right? If they aren't, then you have to still put the pads on the front and on the back of the child. So pediatric pads on a baby would probably almost always be on the front and back, right, Heids?
Yeah.
What else? I had something else to say about pediatric.
Just because the size of the child would not allow for 2 on the front, right?
Right.
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, this is Hawaii too. We have some big babies. So if you can squish that heart and keeping it on the front, I mean, by all means, you can do that. But if you can't, all our goal is to push that heart. So front and back totally works.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
Oh, if you say you're in a situation where you only have an AED, you don't have pediatric pads or anything, can you use the regular one?
That's what I was about to say. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's why, I only have this adult one. It's perfectly fine. What they say is no joules is better than, or more joules is better than no joules of electricity. So yeah, you can totally put adult pads, an adult level of that electric shock can go into a baby and it's totally fine.
And most pediatric arrests are usually airway. So, which we're probably going to go to, and is choking. That's most commonly, that's why children go into cardiac arrest, because it's an airway problem, and not so much a heart problem. Older people, sometimes it's a heart problem because our heart's not pumping as well, but little kids, babies, they're born healthy. You don't expect that unless they have some sort of born with a heart anomaly or something there, then that might happen. But for the most part, it's all airway dependent.
Oh, good segue into.
And now,
so it's the last part of class. So there's two different types of choking. There's mild choking, so mild airway block. In that case, probably the person is still coughing. They can still speak. If you're really worried, you can call 911. But definitely if it's severe choking, so if it's completely blocking the airway and the person cannot speak, maybe they change colors, they turn blue or like white, just not a normal color, then you do call 911. When it comes to children, this is your guide.
that's my favorite thing. When you said that the first time we did the class, I was like, that's the most common sense thing. Like, I love that. I tell all my friends.
If anything can pass through a toilet paper roll, it's a choking hazard. I know it feels big, but this can choke someone. There's this like awful story, you can Google it, but of a child in Australia that was bouncing a bouncy ball, like, you know, a decent size, like little bouncy ball, bouncing it, went up, right into the mouth. Awful. I know because of what happened with Vivi, I now know so many stories of both people saving their children, but also really tragic stories of children that were not able to be saved by when they were choking. And all of the times it's been because people didn't know what to do. If someone knew what to do, it would have been easily preventable. And the thing with children too is that it's all about prevention. That's why I show you this, right? Like before we learn what to do when someone is choking, let's try to make sure they don't choke in the first place. Clearly with children, it's food or objects, right? With adults, most likely food. Let's hope they're not putting objects in their mouths. But you know, with children, you can't completely take that risk away. Katie was just saying, you know, Benjamin goes outside and picks up rocks. Like she could not have any choking hazards in the house, but he goes outside and he picks up rocks, you know? My children are older, they're 5 and 8, but my son likes to put ice in his mouth, you know, that's a choking hazard. So it's always good to know what to do. But the first step is to try to make it so that you reduce the risk of choking happening in the first place. So now, so you think someone is choking, you can always communicate with them, right? Are you choking? Can I help you? Especially if it's an adult. You know, if you get like the yes, they can't speak, then you can just spring into action right away. So this is what we're gonna do. We will start with, let's start with the baby. Okay, so with the baby, it comes very naturally. If you have like a doll at home, that can help too. Or if you have a child, you can go ahead and grab the child. I really recommend that you do that if your child is up and not sleeping, or do it later in the day if they are napping. Just try to see, what does it feel like when I take my child and I put my hand like this, right? You don't want to block their airway. So it's a very natural way to hold your child. You know, your palm is here supporting them. Your hands are around the cheeks, supporting their neck, and gravity. So you're gonna have head down, butt up. So can I hold my child like this with one hand? Is that possible? You know, try to figure it out now. Know whether or not you can do this. You can also put them on your knee like this. Yeah. And you're just gonna do back blows, and you're gonna do them pretty forcefully. So we do 5, what they say in the book is 5 back blows and 5 chest thrusts, but I've gone into detail and asked lots of questions with a lot of professionals. And what they're really saying is, don't do the chest thrust unless the baby does end up going into sudden cardiac arrest. Then you would clearly have to elevate to doing chest thrusts. Just continue to do your back blows, because most of the time within those first 5 blows, that thing's gonna come out, especially if it's completely blocking the airway. So we're gonna go right between the 2 back blades there. And you're just gonna do a nice back blow. That's it. That's it. So I had a friend, her baby was eating frozen bananas, sitting up like this in a high chair, choked on the banana, turned blue, 2 seconds flat. I, at the time, didn't have children. She and I just stared at each other like, oh my God. We had a nurse friend who was standing right behind the baby, picked up the baby, turned her over, did one, boom, out. Put the baby back in, full color, like nothing happened. Yeah. So super easy to rectify this situation if we know what to do. Any questions about with the baby, what to do when a baby chokes?
How long do you go if you're not getting a result? Like when do you stop or, yeah.
So we're definitely going to go back to our whole, you know, with CPR, like when an emergency happens, call 911. So you definitely want to make sure that if it looks like a severe choking incident, that someone's calling, right? So it's like, help, call 911, right? And then go ahead and start doing what you're doing. It can go the other way around too, right? Because it's messy situation. So now you pulled out baby. Oh, okay, it's not coming out. Call 911, call 911. Just keep going. You just keep going. Heidi, anything to add?
Yeah, keep going until they go completely unresponsive. And like if, like Malika said, they're blue, then, I mean, you could still do the back blows, but now they're gonna need their heart compressed because now you're trying to save the brain. So if you're not getting results after so many back blows and they're turning blue and they stopped trying to breathe and trying to clear it, turn them around and start doing compressions.
So that's what we learned earlier in class, right? So if they go unresponsive, now we switch into CPR mode, right? So what is it again? Make sure the scene is safe. Probably, okay, so if you've seen the thing happen, then you can skip a lot of these, right? So if you saw the person go down, right? You don't have to go, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Right? If it's a situation that you have been privy to and now the person is unresponsive, you already know they're unresponsive. So you can skip a bunch of these, right? But if we're going from the beginning, make sure the scene is safe. Tap and shout, right? Help, help, call 911, go get the AED, go out to the street and call the first responders, right? So we're gonna do the whole thing over again. Check for normal breathing, no normal breathing, get on the heart. So if it was a choking incident that turned into CPR now is needed, now we can skip the tapping. We can, you know, we're gonna call for help. We're gonna try to give people rolls, but we don't have to check for normal breathing. We just get right onto the heart, right? So every second counts. Any other questions about Bebe? Or we'll move on to the child. All right. So now with the child, well, with a child and an adult, it's going to be the same general technique. So we're going to get behind the person if we can. And if you can get behind the person, you can do it on yourself. So kind of, where's your pico? Do a little shaka, put your pinky on your pico, bring in your fingers, and that's where your hand placement is going to be. Okay, so pinky on your pico with a shaka, bring in your fingers, and then you're gonna face it in. So your thumb's gonna face in. This is your dominant hand. The other hand is gonna cup the dominant hand, and the general motion that you're doing is going to be in and up. So in and up, in and up, in and up. Just like with the baby, generally speaking, in the first couple of thrusts, that thing should come out if you're doing it right. So do it hard. Yeah, you want, this thing is blocking their airways to the point where they can't speak. So do it hard, because then that air, right, that thrust, it's like a straw. So if you have a pea on the end of a straw, right, you want to like blow hard. You don't want to be like, yeah. So it's the same kind of concept. So we're behind. Yeah, go ahead.
Don't do it hard enough. Just think about it. Soon they're going to go unresponsive and you'll be doing chest compressions on them. So don't be afraid to be like, oh, I don't want to hurt them. do it hard, because that's what you're preventing. You don't want them to go collapse and now you're doing CPR.
So as far as your technique, so now we know where to put our hand and we know what we're gonna do, right? Now you need to protect yourself. You want to make sure that this person, you're behind them, that you're not doing an abdominal thrust with their head right in front of your head. Now you're gonna break your nose and we've got a bigger situation. So you wanna stagger off to the side. So you've got your hands here, make sure your head is off to the side. With your legs, make sure you have a nice stance, okay? So you're behind the person and you're doing these thrusts. Why do you have a good stance? So what if this person goes unresponsive? Yeah, and I'm like this, boom, like we both go down, right? So now I have my good stance, this person goes down. Okay, I can help them get down to the floor. And now they're unresponsive. Okay, I can start to do my compressions right away. It's the same with the child, but again, it's common sense. So how can I get positioned right behind the person? So with Jackson, who is about 8 years old, I'm just gonna be on my knee. So again, my hand placement is the same. I'm still doing the in and up. I'm gonna make sure my head is off to the side. And I'm gonna do the abdominal thrust behind them like this. Same story. I'm not able to get it out. They go unresponsive. Now I can bring this person down and go ahead and start to do chest compressions. What if I can't get my arms around the person because it's the 300-pound man, right? If you can't get your arms around this part of a person is the smallest area. So you can try to get behind them around the chest. And right where you would do the compressions, that's where you would put your hand and do an abdominal thrust in that area. That's also what you would do if it was a pregnant woman. So you're not gonna do it on their belly. You're gonna go above their belly and you're gonna try to do a thrust there and hope for the best that this thing comes out. The other thing you can do is you can put someone up against a wall or hard surface. Same thing. So where am I gonna put my hands? Same area, right? Beneath the bones, but above the pico, right there. And I'm just gonna punch them basically in that area, nice and hard, right? Again, stagger your face. Something, you do it right, something's gonna come out of their mouth. So you don't want your face right in front of where their mouth is. So you're gonna, again, be a little bit staggered, have your stance, because then if this person who's pushed up against the wall goes down, maybe you can, grab underneath their arms and help them down so they don't just slam down to the ground. If you are choking and you're alone and you don't know what to do because it's you, you can take a chair.
And this is true. Like, this is calls that we go on where like grandmas or old ladies or people are home alone and they'll be choking and the chair works. It's insane and it prevents cardiac arrest.
So again, underneath the bones, above the pico, right there, boom. Whatever surface you can find that you can push yourself into is going to be helpful. Having said that, I have a student who once told a story about how, and she was this woman that had taken CPR classes since she was 12 and she taught CPR and choking and all of this. And she said she was driving on the freeway in the middle of nowhere and her boyfriend had just broken up with her. And so, the ugly cry, the that one, she was doing that with the holes in her mouth. You could just imagine what happened. She immediately knew what was happening, pulled over, tried to find some part of the car to do the Heimlich on herself, could not find a part of the car that was at the right position for her to do that. And she ended up having to punch herself. And she said she did it 3 times. It got out on the 3rd time, but that you wouldn't believe how hard you need to punch yourself to get right. So we tell you these stories because we don't know. I like having information. I like hearing other people's stories because then it probably won't happen to you, but if it ever did, you have like all the tools to kind of draw from. So it's going to be the same thing though. You know, you're just gonna do that as hard as you can. Don't practice the hard part on your family, but please, tonight, go and position yourself. You know, now that the kids are back in school, it's a bummer because when I do these Zoom classes, I usually have the whole family here and I can show you exactly how to do it. And it gives me practice again on, okay, where would I put my hands if it was my husband, Paini? You know, and then it makes me feel like the weight of him, like he's just big, you know, like try it. Put your arms around your partner, see where your arms would go. Don't do the actual Heimlich, but get in your stance, put your head off to the side, do the muscle memory thing, because then if it ever does happen, it's just gonna come naturally. Take your children of different ages and sizes. Can you, so like Vi, I could do this until she was about 2.5 years old, right? This is meant to be for infants. But again, it's common sense, right? So what's our goal? Our goal is to get that thing out. Now we're trying to teach Tutu and Grandpa what to do if baby chokes, right? And you're away. Now for Tutu and Grandpa, maybe they don't have the strength to do something like this. Or maybe they don't have the strength to do even the Heimlich. Or you know, maybe you're not confident that they would do the skill properly. You can teach them how to take a 5-year-old and put them over their knee, make sure the head is down and do back blows. Okay, because it's all about the goal. The goal is to get the thing out. And so whatever we can do to get them on the right path. And of course, teaching any of your family members to call 911 is the #1 thing. Any questions about choking? All right. Well, that's it, guys. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so
Lovely.
much. So helpful.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Showing up, guys.
Yeah, we feel better. Well, especially Heidi does.
I do. It makes my job
Yeah,
easier.
hopefully you'll never see any of us in person.
I hope not. I mean, I love meeting all of you, but if I see you at my job, that's not a good thing usually.
Yeah. And just remember, you know, you can do everything right, and the person might still, you know, not be able to make it, but it's not your fault. And you didn't do anything wrong, and you did everything right because you did something. And so hopefully if you ever have to do this, it does work in your favor and the numbers are with you. Let me just tell you, the numbers are with you. What is it? Is it, there's a 98%, it's some crazy statistic that if you respond within 2 minutes with CPR and an AED, the likelihood of that person surviving is like 90-something%. So, you know, just take it from us. You are valuable. You are now lifesavers. Continue to learn, continue to keep up to date with these techniques, and we're just so happy.
So the conversation around your house, just to like create a plan. Like, what if this happened? Because the more you talk about it, if it does ever happen, your whole family it's a conversation that you guys have had, and it just brings a level of calmness where if you do have to go through a medical emergency, that you guys already have talked about it.
Yeah, make it a part of your hurricane plan.
Yeah.
Just got to jump on my soapbox real quick. All right, guys. Thank you for spending 2 hours with us. We value your time, and so we don't want to keep you.
Thank you so much,
so
ladies.
much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
That was fun.
Oh my, it's hard, huh, to teach to your friends. Oh my gosh, that's the first time I've seen you get emotional.
I haven't seen Kimmy in so long. Yeah, it is. It's different when it's like people you know. Oh, that is good.
That was a good class.
I know. I didn't think I was gonna get so flip-flopped.
No, it's good. It's so good.